Good morning. My name is Kathy Finch, and I am the worship associate today. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the North Hills. Whether you have been with this church a decade or more, or this is your first time visiting, we welcome you. Whatever the faith and traditions of your past, we welcome you. Whatever your theological stance, we welcome you. Whoever you are and whomever you love, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, whatever your journey has been, we welcome you. Newcomers and guests are always welcome to participate in any of our church activities. If you'd like more information about our church or Unitarian Universalism, please talk to our minister, Reverend Jane Thixton. You can find her contact information on our website. Please join us for coffee hour following the service. The Zoom link will be posted in the YouTube chat at the end of the service, or you can find it in the upper right-hand corner of our webpage. Two announcements this morning. The pledge drive starts March 7th, and we will be asking you to share with the congregation why you give and why UUCNH is important to you. Look to the weekly e-news for more information. Also, keep your eyes out for something in your snail mail from the church. There will be a special gift inside that you won't want to miss. Again, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the North Hills. It is good to be together, even virtually. opening words today are from Albert Schweitzer. Very little of the great cruelty shown by men can really be attributed to cruel instinct. Most of it comes from thoughtlessness or inherited habit. The roots of cruelty, therefore, are not so much strong as widespread. But the time must come when inhumanity protected by custom and thoughtlessness will succumb before humanity championed by thought. Let us work that this time may come. We light our chalice today with words from Florence Kaplow. We light this chalice in honor of the animal realm, furred and hoofed, two-legged, four-legged, many-legged, fanged and clawed, gentle and fierce, wild and tame. May we remember that all animals are our relatives, worthy of our care and respect. Please join me in singing hymn number 300 with heart and mind. The words will be on the screen.
With heart and mind and voice in hand, may we this time and place transcend to make our purpose understood. A mortal search for mortal good, a firm commitment to the goal of justice, freedom, peace for all. A mind that's free to seek the truth, a mind that's free in age and youth, to choose a path no threat impedes, wherever light of conscience leads. Our martyrs died so we could be a church where every mind is free. A heart that's kind, a heart whose search makes love the spirit of our church, where we can grow and each one's gift is sanctified and spirits lift, where every door is open wide for all who choose to step inside.
Bear and Chicken by Jannie Ho. One very cold day, Bear was hungry from his morning walk when he saw a chicken frozen in the snow. How does one defrost a chicken? Thought Bear. Bear burrito-wrapped Chicken in his favorite blanket. Chicken woke up to the sound of a hot, crackling fire. Bear smiled. But all Chicken saw were his sharp teeth. "Hello there," said Bear as he reached for his cookbook. "You are just in time." In time for what? Chicken thought. Bear brought over a huge pot. It was so big that Chicken could fit inside. Bear filled it with water and turned on the stove. The water boiled. Chicken simmered in suspicion. Chicken peered into the pot, took a step away, only to crash right into some herbs. "Yes, basil! Chicken, that is perfect." Bear began sharpening his knife. Onions, chop. Carrots, chop. Celery, chop, chop. What else is missing?" said Bear. He looked over at Chicken. Chicken, come a little closer and smell the delicious soup, Bear said. It's almost time for lunch. He is going to make me into lunch, Chicken gasped. She wiggled her tail feathers, tripped on a potato, and jumped off the counter. Knocking down everything in sight, Chicken ran with all her might. Chicken zigzagged through the trees, but soon Bear closed in on her. This is the end, Chicken squawked. I'm Chicken Soup! Where are you going? Huffed Bear, catching his breath. You forgot this. You're not going to eat me? Chicken asked. Eat you? I was making lunch for the both of us, Bear explained. Aren't you hungry? Nope, not hungry at all. Chicken shook her head. Then, rumble. Chicken's tummy growled. So you are hungry after all, Bear chuckled. Chicken began to laugh too. Will you help me find my way home? Chicken said as she rubbed her tummy. After some lunch? Yes, after lunch, Bear agreed. The two new friends walked back to Bear's cabin, where a big pot of vegetable soup was waiting for them.
Good morning. I'm Lynn Richards from the Lay Pastoral Care Team. During our service, we create this sacred space for sharing within our community. It is a time to share significant life passages with the congregation so that you can be held in loving care. I'll be reading the joys and sorrows this morning. We will also be placing a stone, which represents each joy or sorrow in the sand. The sand represents our congregation, supporting our sorrows and lifting up the joys. Today, we have several joys and sorrows. First, a sorrow from Melinda Geiger. My beloved aunt, Nancy Hutton, passed away Wednesday. She had been in a nursing home for the last few years with dementia and died peacefully in her sleep. Unfortunately, the home was on lockdown since late fall, so my cousin was not able to visit. Even though the person we knew had been gone for a while, she will be greatly missed. To Melinda we say, we're holding you in our hearts. Next, a joy and a sorrow from Dawn Fitzgerald Swidell. Our joy is that our daughter Katie Swidell's husband John is making an excellent recovery after having surgery recently to remove both a spinal tumor and create a spinal fusion. He has another 5 weeks of rest and PT to go through, but doctors say everything is healing well. To Dawn and Kate we say, we share in your joy. But our sorrow is that we just lost a good friend Jan Held on Thursday. Jan was a remarkable woman who had lived all over the country, including Alaska, been an investigative reporter, and owned her own newspaper. Jan was diagnosed with lung cancer 2 years ago and recently was diagnosed with a tumor in her brain. Please drink a toast to this amazing, daring, adventurous woman who did things in her own way. To Don and Bill we say, we're holding you in our hearts. Next, a sorrow from Joyce and Nancy Kepner. This past Monday, we said goodbye to our oldest and first dog, Froggy. He was 18 years old. We got him when Nancy was 8. She was supposed to get a hamster. Needless to say, he was the best hamster ever. He was a character. We truly miss him. To Joyce and Nancy we say, we're holding you in our hearts. Last, a joy from Lindsay Scott. Alexa's surgery went well, and she is recuperating at home. Many thanks to all of you for your kind thoughts, cards, emails, etc. It really helped. To Lindsay and Alexis, we say, we share in your joy. We now place one more stone in the sand for all those joys and sorrows that exist in our hearts, but which remain unspoken today. We especially think of all who continue to be affected by this COVID-19 pandemic. Please read with me the words appearing on the screen, knowing that here includes all those watching. Let us hold in our circle of caring each person here. Let us hold in our hearts those who are unable to be with us today. Let us hold in our memories those who have moved on. Let us find comfort in knowing that we are not alone.
I invite you to join me now in a spirit of prayer or meditation. Please settle in a little more comfortably. Close your eyes if you wish. Allow your body to relax into this sacred space. Breathe in deeply and breathe out slowly. Breathe in compassion. Breathe out peace. Let us pause for a few moments during this musical meditation. Our congregation is supported solely by the contributions of its members and friends. In tough times, we need our faith community more than ever. Let's make sure to maintain it, even in this difficult time. The morning offering will be taken by your mailing a check to the church or by going to the UUCNH.org website, finding the link in the upper right-hand corner that says Donate, and making a contribution equivalent to what you would be putting in the plate or more. The morning offering will be given and gratefully received. Please join me in saying the dedication of the offering. May these gifts and the work of our hands and hearts give power to all we stand for as a community of faith. Our reading today, Grateful for Creatures from A to Z, is by Gary Kowalski. We give thanks for the earth and its creatures and are grateful from A to Z. For alligators, apricots, acorns, and apple trees. For bumblebees, bananas, blueberries, and beagles. Coconuts, crawdads, cornfields, and coffee. Daisies, elephants, and flying fish. For groundhog, glaciers, and grasslands. Hippos and hazelnuts, icicles, and iguanas. For juniper, jackrabbits, and June bugs, kudzu and kangaroos, lightning bugs and licorice, for mountains and milkweed and mistletoe, narwhals and nasturtiums, otters and ocelots, for peonies and persimmons and polar bears, quahogs and Queen Anne's lace, for raspberries and roses, salmon and sassafras, tornadoes and tulip wood, urchins and valleys and waterfalls, yaks and yams and yogurt. We are grateful, good earth, not least of all, for zinnias, zucchini, and zebras, and for the alphabet of wonderful things that are as simple as A, B, C.
Good morning. My name is Abby Vaughn, and today I'm going to talk about food. Our diets are a very personal thing. More than just keeping us alive, they're an integral part of our identity. So many of our traditions, both cultural and individual, include or revolve around food. We also each have individual budgets, preferences, and dietary needs that influence our diets. Despite these challenges, it is increasingly important to consider the systems our food come from, the impact these systems have on us and our interdependent web, and what choices we want to make in the face of this knowledge. Today, I'm going to focus on factory farms. The impacts of factory farming are varied, widespread, and alarmingly harmful to people, animals, and the environment. Nearly all meat, about 70% of cows and 98 to 99% of pigs, turkeys, chickens, and eggs, come from factory farms. I want to begin with an issue that is particularly relevant: the role of factory farms in zoonotic disease spillover, that is, diseases that move from other animals to humans. We are in the midst, but hopefully nearing the end, of a pandemic that is almost certainly a result of human consumption of meat. While COVID-19 most likely originated in a wildlife market in China, factory farms are likely to be the cause of future pandemics. Already, factory farms have been implicated in swine flu and avian flu outbreaks in the past. In addition to introducing new diseases to humans, factory farms are also connected to the increasing seriousness and antibiotic resistance of diseases like E. coli, MRSA, and Salmonella. The specific practices that contribute to the rise of zoonotic illnesses also cause animals direct suffering. Animals are bred to grow larger more quickly, which leads to crippling birth defects like chickens that cannot stand up under the weight of their own bodies. They are fed unnatural diets and given hormone supplements. As many stressed out animals as will fit are crammed into buildings where they spend their entire lives so tightly packed together with fellow animals and their shared wastes that the fumes and overcrowding are so bad that if the ventilation system fails, animals begin dying within minutes. All of these factors combine to drastically weaken the animal's immune systems, and normally benign low levels of viruses and bacteria explode, causing serious infections. This is so common that animals are routinely given antibiotics, not after they get sick, but preventatively. The suffering of animals and people continues at the slaughterhouse, where poorly paid meat packers, who are disproportionately immigrants, refugees, and people of color, are among the least protected workers under federal health and safety regulations. When the COVID-19 outbreak began, these workers were denied personal protective equipment, forced to work long hours alongside other workers, and after inevitably contracting COVID-19, were denied compensation claims. I also want to talk about the environmental impact of factory farming. Animal waste, which under a traditional farming system is used as fertilizer for crops, in factory farming is produced in such quantities that it is kept in artificially built lagoons, often until heavy rains or a natural disaster washes it into public waterways, where it causes massive fish kills and waterborne disease outbreaks. This is on top of the already high environmental cost of raising animals from increased land use, water use, and carbon emissions. I say all this not to argue that eating animals in and of itself is unethical, but that the system as it exists today is unethical. It is dangerous to people, cruel to animals, and harmful to the environment. However, that does not mean the system cannot change. There are signs that the tide is turning against factory farming. The demand for pasture-raised meat has been increasing. Some states have started passing laws banning the worst forms of mistreatment against livestock. We can help this trend continue by putting pressure on our own government representatives to make similar and even more extensive changes to the law. Of course, there is one more thing we can do. We can choose our food more mindfully. We can think about where our food comes from and what impact our dietary choices have on our interdependent web. In fact, Reducing the amount of meat and dairy one eats is the single biggest change a person can make to have a positive environmental impact, reducing carbon emissions, global acidification, and land and water use. My own journey toward a more plant-based diet has been long and winding. In the past, I've been vegetarian out of convenience. I didn't know how to cook meat. It also felt good to know that I was reducing animal suffering. Over time, I began to eat meat again, in part because the sterility of packaged meat at the grocery store makes it easy to forget where it came from. In the following years, I would occasionally be reminded of reasons why I wanted to be vegetarian, but it always felt too hard, especially after I had kids and had to come up with meals an entire family would eat. Now, thanks to the endless hours at home that I've had during the pandemic, I've given a lot of thought to my choices. And it is with renewed vigor that I am trying to eat my values, in this case, a plant-based diet. Like most changes in life, the execution has been imperfect. My kids hate vegetables. I don't even particularly like vegetables, but we are trying. We're finding plants that we do like to eat, foods that are, if not healthier, at least more sustainable than meat and dairy. And I take solace in knowing that each time we choose to eat a snack or a meal that is plant-based over one that is animal-based, we are making a difference. We will now hear a few personal stories from UUCNH members who have made changes to their own diet in an effort to reflect their own values in what they eat.
Hi, I'm Cindy Mitchell, and I've been asked to share with you my journey and my family's journey to vegetarianism. It came about in 2006 for myself. I was watching a nature program on television, and it featured the migration of gray whales. The mother whale had her calf in the Gulf of California, and as she began her migratory journey up the California Pacific coast, she was encountered a pod of hunting orca, and the mother whale tried to protect her calf, but the orca were intent upon separating the calf from the mother and drowning it and to eat it. The mother was unable to protect the calf died, and the orca did what orca do. And it had a profound effect on me. The grief that the mother went through touched me profoundly. And I looked at my husband who was watching the show, and I said, I understand they're doing what they do, but I have a choice. And I don't know if this is going to last a day, a week, or forever, but I simply don't want to eat other animals anymore. It stuck with me. One of the interesting things that happens before COVID is that when dining at a restaurant, we often ask, what are the vegetarian options on the menu? And we get some pretty interesting answers. Oh, we have gluten-free. That's not vegetarian, doesn't have anything to do with vegetarianism. Or, oh, we have chicken and fish. So we've developed a response that we don't eat dead critters. Do you have anything that doesn't contain dead critters? And it usually gets a kind of response from the server, or a hearty giggle, or oh, hey, I'm a vegetarian too. I can show you what we've got. And now I'm going to backtrack just a bit and tell you that Michael at first was like, oh, that's cute. She's not going to eat animals. Aw. And a short time later, he was in the Gulf of Mexico fishing and caught a very large fish. And he was very proud of it. Oh, look, my great catch, and take my picture. And I did. And then I just said, are you going to eat that? And he had this aha moment of, no, I'm not, and set the fish free. And then it was within a short period, he went scuba diving and had a spear gun, and he's down in the middle of the schools of fish, and he found himself unable to use the spear gun anymore. No, they're just fish being fish, and I'm not really a predator. And so now we grow our own food and as much as we can, and peace out, critters.
Good morning. I'm Amy Wilkes, and I have been asked to share my vegan journey with you. First, to define veganism. It's much more than a plant-based diet. It is a philosophy and a way of life which excludes, as far as is possible and practical, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, or other purposes, and promotes the use of animal-free alternatives for the benefit of animals, humans, and the environment. My personal journey started in my early 20s when my younger brother went to a nature camp and came home with a new to us knowledge of the way animal foods are produced. He was eager to share and was quite convincing, and soon I and the rest of our animal-loving family began to rethink our food choices. I learned that 99% of farmed animals in our country are raised on factory farms, where they live in appalling conditions and are routinely mistreated. To quote Charles Darwin, "There's no fundamental difference between man and animals in their ability to feel pleasure and pain, happiness and misery." Anyone with a dog or a cat at home knows that, but I had never considered the suffering of the animals I was eating. I had a clear case of cognitive dissonance. So I eliminated animal meat from my diet and was a vegetarian for a few years until I learned about the horrors of the dairy and egg industries. On top of that, I learned that our bodies aren't designed to easily process breast milk from other animals, and most of us stop producing lactase, an enzyme which helps us digest the lactose in our mother's milk, after infancy. I started to become fully aware of the things we do to animals simply for a burger, a glass of milk, or a plate of scrambled eggs. It was then that I eliminated all animal products from my diet. Eventually, I stopped wearing wool and leather, sought out products that weren't tested on animals, and avoid places that used animals for entertainment, like circuses and horse-drawn carriage rides. I began to understand that animal agriculture is the cause of serious health and environmental problems. For instance, keeping animals in crowded and unhealthy living conditions is not only inhumane, but also requires routine doses of antibiotics. Overuse of antibiotics on factory farms creates conditions for bacteria to develop resistance to them, which is bad news for animals and humans. Animal agriculture also contributes greatly to air and water pollution. The largest factory farms produce almost 13 times more waste than the human population of the United States. To make matters worse, the EPA and state governments have failed to sufficiently regulate the environmental impacts of factory farms. Agriculture is the biggest contaminator of rivers and streams, yet they're exempt from regulation under the Clean Water Act. And perhaps you've heard of the ag-gag laws. They were designed to prevent the public from learning about the animal cruelty that goes on behind closed barn doors every single day, because most of us just could not handle that reality. American biologist Mark Bekoff said, Make ethical choices in what we buy, do, and watch. In a consumer-driven society, our individual choices, used collectively for the good of animals and nature, can change the world faster than laws. When my husband Brad and I started our family, we did a lot of research, consulted with our pediatrician, and ultimately chose to keep meat and dairy out of our kids' diets. Through the years, we as a family have attended circus protests, written letters, signed petitions, made donations, visited and supported farm sanctuaries, all for the sake of animal rights and being a voice for the voiceless. Today, my kids are 22, 20, and 17, and still vegan in every way. It's one of my proudest accomplishments. Through the years, I've considered how veganism relates with our Unitarian Universalist faith. Our first principle about inherent worth and dignity applies to people, but I feel it should include all living beings. Why not? The seventh principle, respecting the interdependent web of existence, also comes to mind. How does the way our society treats the animals we use for food reflect respect? In fact, it feels very disrespectful to eat animals who have been born and bred to be mistreated at factory farms just so they can end up on someone's dinner plate. It seems to me that eating ethically is something we as UUs have an obligation to consider for the animals, for our health, and for our earth. I have sought out support in the broader UU community and recently joined the UU Vegetarians and Vegans on Facebook. It's a small group, but it's a start. I will leave you with a quote from Mark Hawthorne, American writer and animal rights activist. He said, "For me, living fully awake means embracing all species with the same level of respect and kindness. Being a joyful vegan doesn't take willpower, just a willingness to try to learn new things, try new things, and to choose mercy over misery." Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rachel Smart, and I have been a vegetarian for almost 19 years. I choose to be a vegetarian for a variety of reasons: environmental, ethical, health. But the origin of my story is definitely based on an ethical decision. It's not completely my own story, however. It is also my husband's story. And it all started on October 25th, 1998, one day after we were married. We had chosen to spend our honeymoon in the Poconos, which is not only a romantic honeymoon destination, but was also conveniently located halfway between our home and where we got married. If you have ever been to the Poconos, you may have also been to Country Junction, aka the world's largest general store. We, of course, could not pass up the opportunity to check it out, and well, I guess it was fate. They happened to be having a petting zoo going on at the time. Sheep, goats, chickens, ducks, and a cow. The cow is really the star of this story. My recollection is that the cow was fairly young, bigger than a calf, but not yet full grown. It was a chocolate brown color with huge liquidy brown eyes. I remember that I could see the life in those eyes staring right at me, looking perhaps a little sad, like it knew what its ultimate fate would be. And I guess my husband saw the same. He spent quite a while staring at that cow, scratching its head between the ears and just thinking. I don't remember the exact moment or the exact words that he spoke, but shortly after we left the world's largest general store, he looked at me and said, "I can't eat that anymore." I looked into its eyes and it looked into mine, and I can't eat it anymore. It took a bit for it to sink in. My husband wanted to be vegetarian. It was not something that I had ever thought about. I loved meat. I hated vegetables. And, well, I didn't know any vegetarians. What would he eat? Would he be healthy? I wanted to support him in his decision and make sure that he ate well. So, being me, I started to research. I checked out books from the library. I watched videos. Back then, the internet wasn't quite as accessible as it is now. If it had been, I know I would have been joining Facebook groups, reading blogs, making connections with other vegetarians, and perhaps resolved my situation and my lifestyle change much faster. Because I have to admit that it was not a sudden magical transformation to a vegetarian lifestyle. There was no snapping our fingers and suddenly we were eating tofu. There were definitely a few false starts. The whole process took several years. I cut out red meat first, then pork. Chicken and fish took a little bit longer, but eventually my research made the decision clear to me. Prior to our first child's first birthday, we were both fully committed, and I have never eaten a bite of meat since. We even have raised our children vegetarian, instilling in them a love of animals and their own desire to not eat or harm another creature. And they in turn inspired us to extend our no harm policy to the insect world. Spiders live safely in our home, knowing that it's their world too. They are important. They are part of the web of life. I understand that animals eat animals, and that is also part of the web of life. But as a human, I have a choice. I don't need to eat meat. I don't need to support the cruelty of factory farming. I don't need to support a diet that is ultimately unsustainable with our world population and is hurting the environment. I can choose to eat ethically and sustainably and healthily. I can choose to be a vegetarian, and so I do. Thank you for listening.
Hi, my name is Rowan Brosom, and I jokingly call myself a part-time vegetarian. And what I mean by that is I used to eat a lot of meat. I grew up in a household where meat was served every dinner and sometimes for breakfast and occasionally for lunch too. I had meat in my meals that I took to school. It was just what my family did. And my father was an amateur chef. My mother was a very big ethnic cook. And between the two of them, meat was in every meal. It was just sort of how it was. As I grew up and moved out on my own and started exploring other culinary ways, I was introduced to vegetarianism by a friend's mother, and she didn't cook with spice. And so I found the food bland and unappetizing. And so my opinion about vegetarian food was very negative. And I wouldn't even consider anything like that. And then through various attempts at weight loss or controlling blood sugar, whatever, I've eaten paleo and I've eaten keto, and those are very heavy on the meats. And while I did feel better in some ways, I felt like my digestive system just wasn't thrilled. And I felt loggy, and I don't know, it wasn't healthy for me. It didn't feel healthy for me. And my cholesterol shot through the roof. So I started investigating because I absolutely hate the way factory farms operate. I think that they are essentially torturing the animals, and I don't feel like their deaths are humane. Their living conditions are deplorable with crowding. They load them up with chemicals. So if I do eat meat, I try to eat organic and grass-fed. If it's beef, for chicken, I try to, have pasture-raised as opposed to farm raised or in captivity. And I don't know that they're always telling 100% of the truth. I think, there's a lot of hype that doesn't necessarily meet reality. So it's been a struggle. It's been something that I've had to learn. I have started to cook more vegetarian meals, and they're really good. And sometimes I put meat in them for other people because I feel like I have to, but I prefer them without the meat. It's all about experimenting with seasonings and experimenting with different flavor combinations and finding out what you like and what you don't like, and not allowing other people's judgments to have any impact on at least for me, for my decisions. So when I did it organically, just as a process where I was like, yeah, I think I'll just do the meatless Monday thing. And then I thought, well, if I make enough for Monday, I can have it on Tuesday too. And just made it low pressure and low stress. And I feel like I'm having a very positive impact on my health. I am reducing the need for so much meat in my diet. So that's less animals harmed. And I also feel like environmentally, it's incredibly important. The factory farm process, from feed production to the impact on wastewater to methane. There's just so many negative environmental impacts to factory farming, and I would really love to see us not utilize that process. But in all honesty, we are such population density now that there's really no way to completely avoid that people could afford. And that's ultimately what it comes down to, is the cost. So for me, I'm very budget conscious. I have to worry about money, especially this year and last year. So, choosing a mostly vegetarian diet has been less expensive. It's been easier to prepare. The food lasts longer in the fridge. I don't have to worry as much about it spoiling and becoming unhealthy for me. So I can get a little bit more time out of each thing that I cook. And I find that I just enjoy my meals better, knowing that I'm not bringing that into my body. However, there's also time constraints and things that make just throwing some meat in and having it on occasion necessary, especially with a crazy job where I'm on the road and I'm running around. So for me, I don't think I can commit 100% to vegetarianism for all the reasons I mentioned and more, but to significantly reduce my animal intake is good for me. It's good for the environment. It's good for my soul, I feel like. And it doesn't have to be an all or nothing proposition. I can choose to do this my way and take the middle road. And that's what I've chosen to do. And so far it's working for me. Thanks, everybody.
Please join in singing our closing hymn, We Celebrate the Web of Life. It's number 175 in the hymnal, and the words will be on the screens.
We celebrate the web of life, its magnitude we sing, for we can see divinity in every living thing. A fragment of the perfect whole in cactus and in quail, as much in tiny barnacle as in the great blue whale. Of ancient dreams we are the sum, our bones link stone to star, and bind our future worlds to come with worlds that were and are. Respect the water, land, and air, which gave all creatures birth. Protect the lives of all that share the glory of the earth.
We close today with words from Henry Beston. If there is one thing clear about the centuries dominated by the factory and the wheel, it is that although the machine can make everything from a spoon to a landing craft, a natural joy in earthly living is something it never has and never will be able to manufacture.